Good afternoon, everyone. As you maybe can tell, I'm not Jorge. I'm Elvira Crespo. I'm channel manager for Elastix. And I'll be talking a bit about Elastix 3, the new version that we have upcoming. And yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining what Elastix is. I'm just going to say that it's a unified communication solution. It's open source. So today, we'll be basing this presentation in only 3 features of Elastix 3, even though that the new version also comes with a bundle of improvements in the general product. So first of all, some interesting facts. So for Elastix 3, we have had almost 3 years of development. I remember that back in 2012 in the Elastix World in Madrid, I did a small bit of introduction to what was upcoming for Elastix 3, which was not even in alpha, or I think we released the alpha back then, but it's been almost 3 years of development. And because it took a lot of code rewriting, and we also had tons of testing time, probably over 1.5 years of testing. So what else can we say here? It's a security emphasized design. We have made it so that the way we execute commands in the operating system has been made more secure. GUI improvements, we shall talk about that a little bit further. Services integration, well, that's basically what UC is about, right? To have all services integrated. Before in Elastix, you had all these services there, telephony, messaging, etc., but they were not, their management was not centralized. So you would have to set up telephony in one section and then go to another menu to set up, I don't know, faxing or whatever. So that's what we have changed in this new version. Design for the cloud, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Better tools for developers. We have worked on tools and ways to communicate with Elastix. This basically refers to the format of JSON we are using in Elastix 3, which is lighter as compared to what we were previously using in terms of web services and WSDL and XML formats. So yeah, let's continue. So we come to highlight number 1, which is multi-tenancy. We could say that Elastix is the first open source solution out there with the multi-tenancy feature. So basically what this means is that you can have several companies or tenants in a single server. And each company is going to be managed separately as in terms of their own extensions, the users, the queues, the reports, etc. And this makes Elastix an attractive option for carriers who want to offer the service of hosted PBX. So for PBX providers and telcos, Elastix 3 is going to be a choice. Some companies in the past used to provide these services, but making use of virtual machines. So each one had their own independent installation of the OS, background applications, several instances of Elastix, Apache, databases, etc. But with this new feature, we won't have to virtualize anything. This also provides savings in terms of server resources, which is good. We have a redesigned user hierarchy. The users can be reached by extension or by email address because the user is going to be tied to the domain name of the tenant of their own company. So you see here, we, through SIP or any other communication tool, the email is the identifier of the user, since they're also associated to the domain name, like I said, pertaining to their tenant. We can see here in the slide user Edgar of company 1 with the same extension number for each tenant. You see also have Edgar in company number 2 with extension 2001. This is interesting since the other multi-tenant solutions out there, they do not allow for the dial plan to have this sort of structure because they could have collisions, with the extension number, but Elastix 3 allows this. And it provides the impression of independence between tenants. Okay, next slide. Well, in terms of general GUI improvements, this is the new scheme for the admin web interface. Previously, the theme or skin we were using was called Neo. This one is called Tenant. Something to note here is that we can now set up the skin and language for each admin user. Before, you could only do that like globally for every user, but now we shall be able to configure this separately. Let's jump to our second highlight, which is the Elastix desktop. Before, in previous Elastix versions, you would have the GUI, but only for the administrator of the PBX. Which, well, actually this feature was the one that was very attractive for those integrators using Elastix. Because the GUI provides benefits, in terms of it makes it easier not to go to the console and have to do everything from scratch. But there wasn't an interface for the end user. Now in Elastix 3, the end user can have an interface, which now becomes a differentiator with other solutions, which are still, as Elastix and previous versions were as well, focused only on the administrative side. So what's cool about it is that we finally have an integration of all the communications services for the end user as well. So you see here we have the chat menu with the status of the user present in colors. Also a list of emails with the appearance of a regular email client such as Gmail or whatnot. Everything in this interface with the list and folder organization gives the appearance of regular mail client. However, one thing to note here is that in that list, one of the items could be an email, but it could also be a fax that just came in. It could be a system alert, like a calendar notification for an event, or an incoming chat that came when it was not available, so it's recorded there. The idea is to have an interface from where the user can not only chat, but access all the communication services that are provided by Elastix. So the user is not only able to make a call from this interface, but I don't know, they could make a video call to another user in the company. So the Elastix desktop aims to be a communication suite for the end user, and it would provide an alternative as well for an office that does not have a lot of handsets. I mean, it's good and nice to have the pretty phones, the IP phones, but it could also be an alternative for those who don't have the infrastructure, maybe for an startup company. Another interesting thing about the Elastix desktop is that it's web responsive. So this means that you don't need to have a web browser in your PC to access it. You could also see it from a mobile device and without the need to have any special app or anything to access it. Now, out of the record, allow me to tell you that our dev team is working on click-to-call feature with the context list from a web browser and even from your mobile device. However, they were just telling me like this week or last week that they were running into some media compatibility issues with the browsers, so it might not come in the stable release that's upcoming, but probably in a future release, but it's coming. Okay. Last but not least, the next highlight feature of Elastix 3 is the SIP proxy. As you well know, there are tons of reasons why our customer might want you to implement a SIP proxy. Maybe they want to prevent, I don't know, flooding attacks or balancing load, whatever. They always have an idea to say, hey, let's implement this. Now, if you have ever done it before, implementing a SIP proxy before an Elastix can be a major headache. It would bring a level of complexity in the network that probably the company, to stop themselves from worrying about it, would hire a top-notch tech guy to make the whole pretty network design, which would come also with a top-notch bill. So with Elastix 3, you have to do nothing for this because this version comes with Camelio as embedded SIP proxy. So you would only need to do your regular basic configuration for the PBX, I don't know, trunks, extensions, the queues, and whatnot. And all the configuration for the SIP proxy is automatically performed on the background, so you really have to do nothing. Of course, if the administrator wants to dig in and tweak or make more complex setups, they can do so. However, by default, having to do nothing in place already without moving a finger provides a great advantage. We'll see why. So with the SIP proxy, we have better security. As you know, basically what the proxy does is handles signaling. Camelio can incorporate some modules that can detect plotting attacks, etc. We also have presence support. We see the chat window there with the colors denoting the presence status. Before with Elastix, that was not possible. I mean, there was the status or presence in the level only of telephony, like the extension was busy, not available, etc. But presence goes beyond that. For example, by saying, I don't know, I went out for lunch, put an away status, etc., or any random message I can, now I'm going to be able to do so. Because the presence support becomes much more powerful with the use of a SIP proxy. We also have chat over SIP. With Camelio as SIP proxy, we have a module for messaging and presence using the same SIP protocol. Now, before you ask what's going to happen to OpenFire and XMPP, Elastix 3 will provide an embedded gateway that will translate all SIP messaging into XMPP. So the idea is that if you have a SIP client via cell phone and this app supports chat over SIP, they could chat with another user through Elastix in the company without having to use any other clients, I don't know, Gtalk or anything for their internal messaging. IP auth. We can have whitelists and blacklists by IP for those companies who have privacy policies and they, I don't know, want only to allow certain specific IP addresses. They can do so. SIP proxy also provides the registrar service, meaning Asterisk won't be the one authenticating the user. Now, this is quite important because Asterisk in this new version of Elastix 3 has lost a bit of its protagonism, we could say. And now we are only seeing it as dedicated to provide the telephony service. So they provide the queues, the IVRs, etc., but it won't be the one authenticating the user. It's interesting because the way to handle a SIP conversation by a SIP server like Camelio is much more efficient than the way an IPPBX like Asterisk would handle it. So last but not least is the NAT management. One example is provided by us. I think there was a demonstration that maybe Edgar, our CEO, did using Amazon Web Services to implement Elastix. So if you, I don't know, have ever used Amazon Web Services, you will know that what they provide to you is a private IP. So if you have packets going outside Amazon and with that private IP, you could have an adding issue because like if they have addressed the packet to a private IP, it's going to go nowhere. So to handle the rewriting, a SIP proxy in the middle was a requirement. So now we have come to a conclusion. Let's talk about a little what's in the package for Elastix 3, very basically. In terms of the versions, we have CentOS 6.5, Asterisk 11, which is the long-term support version that we are using, Camelio 4.1.5. And for FreePBX, we are not putting the version because the RPM package is not included per se. However, what we are currently using from FreePBX is that template for the configuration of the extensions.conf file. So they're doing the rewriting of the whole extensions structure. So that's what Elastix 3 is using with small modifications to our own version. That's all there is to say in terms of versions. And yeah, so when is this going to happen? As I don't know if you have heard it, but Elastix 3 has been in the release candidate state for quite some time. I think it's since June. And by the end of October, meaning next week in our event in Chile, in the Elastix World, we are probably going to be releasing the stable version, or at least that's what the developers are rushing for. So for those people wondering what's going to happen to Elastix 2, we don't have a confirmed date yet for the end of life for that, but it's probably going to be somewhere at the end of 2015 or 2016. And we are working on a version upgrading and migration tool. It's probably going to be some add-on or something, a web wizard that will help you, but it will only be focused to the PBX configuration itself, meaning that you won't be able to migrate automatically to, I don't know, third-party applications like vTiger and so on. So probably we'll have written procedures on how to do that part manually. Okay, so to finish with this small talk today, a little bit of gossip of what's in the roadmap for Elastix. For the add-ons, add-on support is being worked on because currently if you have tried the, I don't know, the beta or the release candidates, the add-ons are still not supported. For those of you who don't know what an add-on is a third-party application that does not come with the default Elastix installation. So probably the developer add-on, which is the one that allows you to build your own module, it's going to be the first one to be released. And another thing that's coming is that an add-on won't need to be an RPM package, but we're working so that they can be compressed files, I don't know, zip, for example, which will simplify it and motivate the development for the add-ons, so you will need to know how to construct an RPM package. DNS server. It's very important to note when you use Elastix 3 that since the registration will not longer be tied to an IP address, but by domains, so to make an accordance with the tenants themselves, it might not work if you do it with, well, it won't work if you do it with IP addresses. But the important is that these domains might be non-existent out there, or might be a subdomain, meaning like out there in the internet, there is probably no DNS server that's going to be doing the translation or the resolution of the names. So you got to take that into account when configuring Elastix 3. And we're working to ease this part to help the integrator is for Elastix to have its own local DNS server. So the admin can do this configuration from the web interface as well. I mean, they will be able to do it, but currently at the state it is, it's going to be done by console. And to finish today, we aim to have Elastix as a communications engine. What this means is that Elastix 3, we have taken a first step so far with the implementation of an API REST. So our next step is to create a new unified communications protocol. I don't know if you have heard of the ECCP, which is the Elastix Call Center Protocol, which is open source as well. Well, the idea with creating a new communications protocol is to have people in the community out there, third-party developers, who want to come up with their own ideas, who want to develop their own interface. They can do so according to whatever they have in mind in their programming language they prefer. So they can make use of all the services without having to be tied to a specific interface. I mean, that's something that Elastix wants to put out there for the community. So thank you very much for having been here today. I don't know if you have any questions, anyone? Sure.
So the tenancies mapped by the domain. Customer is that Gmail, is that every customer, or is that Gmail is the same thing?
What do you mean by Gmail? Sorry.
They don't have a personal domain, they just use something like Gmail or Yahoo or something. Does that mean that we have domain, they're now on the same thing?
Well, I'm not sure if I understood very well the question, but the point is to have a single domain or subdomain per tenant. So if your question is that if we shall be able to have the same domain name for two tenants at the same time, no, that won't be possible. Because then, like, the resolution of the name will have to be tied to a single tenant. So one company, one tenant, one domain name. Any other questions? First level? No. Yeah, sure. No, it's not necessary. You could have a regular domain name. Anyone else? Sure. To call? Yes, actually, what I understand, this could be a small savings for the person or the company providing the hosting of the tenants. So they can call between each other, but they would have to make a call as if they were calling to the outside. But internally, the call is never going outside, so it's not making use of the trunk. So it's being routed internally.
I've got a customer that have a multi-tenant building, but they want one reception, but everybody's sort of clustered with different. This company has 15 employees, this company has one. They want one reception.
Probably there's a way, but I'm not sure how the specifics would be for that. Probably I don't know if they shall have the same extension per tenant to have the same extension as the receptionist, but I'm not sure, how would that work, but I'm sure it's something shall be possible. So we also have some small stickers for those people asking questions, so here you go. I'll you in the back later. Yes, the plan is to put an end of life to Elastix, the branch 2.x. Yeah, from now on. Well, not now, but probably 1 to 2 years from now. Yeah, that's coming up with Elastix 3. Well, the idea is to be able, I'm not sure what the status is right now, but the idea is to be able to handle all the configuration from the API. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like, not only have basic things, but to be able to manage the PBX using the API. I know, they're working for it to be the basis. I'm not sure what's the specifics in terms of the design itself. But if you stop by our booth later, maybe we can discuss and get you an answer from the developer team. So to have many Elastix installations with several tenants on their own, is that your question? Well, I think the multi-tenancy of the Elastix 3 is based in only one instance of Asterisk running. So you might do it, but Elastix 3, what it does, it works with their multiple tenants, but only one instance of Asterisk. Yeah, it's a template that it's going to convert all the extensions.conf. Yeah, the thing is that FreePBX, as I know, maybe you know better, but they don't support multi-tenancy by themselves. So what we do is that we're taking the templates to convert the whole extension, but it's being modified to to work with the Elastix code to create a multi-tenancy. Yes, because the difference with Elastix 2 is that it doesn't come with the FreePBX as a package. Like before, you had the actual FreePBX package in there, and you could also even like run it and embed it, with its own interface. But that will no longer be the case. Well, I know they're using the templates, but it's a modified version, so since I'm not a developer, I don't know the specifics. But I know like they're not using it raw. Mm-hmm.
I know this is a bigger question, but while we were doing the test, what about the folks that tested on the high-end machine?
Well, I don't know. I know there are Elastix installations with maybe 1,000 extensions or something, but with Elastix 3, well, we don't really have that large numbers because it's coming really now only to the stable version, so we don't have big installations because nobody would do a big installation in a product that is not stable. But it's basically going to depend on the hardware, on if you're doing balancing of the load itself in multiple servers. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? No. Well, thank you very much for coming. Hope if you have any other question, you can stop by our booth, and hope you enjoyed the little presentation. And you are welcome to download Elastix 3 when it comes stable, probably next week. Thank you.